So that was it. That was the experiment. I hope that you enjoyed it, following me on my journey of my writing process. It was very interesting, something I had never attempted before, and something that I found was very valuable for many reasons. One thing I think is that this really dispels the notion that creative writing exists in a vacuum and just comes out how it's gonna come out, how it's gonna appear on the page or in print or through whatever means necessary. One thing I do realize too is that I know I was talking mainly about process and process pedagogy, and I know that that is somewhat of a dated concept. It's almost accepted as kind of a norm. It's like, yeah, we know there's pre-writing involved sometimes, and there's the writing phase, and there's rewriting and revision, and that stuff is recursive, and it goes back and forth. But one thing I think that technology does with some of those older theories, like process pedagogy, like cognitive theory, like expressivism, all theories that I mentioned throughout the course of the different episodes, is that technology gives us the ability to resurrect those things, look at them in a new way, see how technological spaces, different writing spaces, can allow us to refashion those theories. I mean, what were to happen if we took the Flower and Hayes study, right, and put it into contemporary context with using technology? Like, screen capture, what would happen? Would we get similar results? Would we get different? That's sort of the question, right? So I think that's one thing that is really valuable. Certainly this is a project that tries to describe how comp theory can inform creative writing pedagogy. And in many regards, I believe that composition and creative writing are both still a little technologically phobic, more so perhaps creative writing. But again, I'm not trying to point fingers here saying comp is really leading the way in terms of digital writing and in terms of studying it as a writing environment. Creative writing is not. Because certainly there are a lot of creative writing practitioners and theorists that are coming out of creative writing that are using technology and using it to talk to their students, to dialogue, to use the space effectively. It's not, I think, as heavily represented perhaps, because there still might be some of that notion of, the writer in sort of seclusion and mystery, and trying to keep the writing process a bit of a mystery, the fashioning of creative works. So hopefully this, particularly if we think of it in terms of a pedagogical tool, and talking about process and talking about how we write, it can be valuable for introductory students that still maybe think that way, that think that that's how writing happens and occurs. Again, one of my main research interests is that intersection of comp theory and creative writing, and certainly more contemporary theories could be used. Social epistemic, for example, right? That all knowledge is collective. And clearly my environment, as you could hear as I was doing the screen capture, played a role in how I constructed the poem and the subject matter, right? Referencing my son, doing the pre-writing where I was talking about the things that surrounded me, right? Post-process, the notion that process theory is dead, post-process is where it's at. Again, I made no claims that my writing is the only way of writing, as maybe process pedagogy says that there are sort of those three stages, and we go back and forth between them in various degrees. Clearly my writing is situated because it's based on my fixed and subjective positions in society, right? The value of the text itself and any meaning from it comes from the interpretation of the audience, the reader. So there's value of interpretation there. And certainly using something like screen capture makes the process more public, right? Which again I think is sort of the fear in terms of creative writing as a field, and to creative writers. There's certainly critical pedagogy where this could be applied, right? I'm decentering myself as the instructor. I'm making myself vulnerable to the students and seeing how I go about this piece, right, and writing it. I'm not just depositing knowledge and saying, here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do, that type of stuff. But posing questions, certainly this could be used in a variety of degrees on how to pose questions, right? And ultimately the goal when you're talking about theory is to put it into practice, right, to inform our pedagogy. It would be interesting to see how technology in a creative writing classroom might occur, in varying degrees. For example, if we look at Nicole's work, right, which is the next section of our website here, what if creative writing students created blogs to talk about different subjects, right, to talk about different literary terms, different stories, all those kinds of things. If they crafted visual essays for their creative pieces, if they used visual essays as a genre, right? There are some programs out there in the country that are really paving the way for this. I know Brown University has a kind of digital writing, visual writing type of MFA thing that's happening. So some places are actually really doing this. And then, of course, the staple of both creative writing and comp in many regards is the portfolio, that final evaluation of your work that shows your process over the course of time. Putting that into a website in electronic format, right? Not valuing the print over, say, the screen, to use perhaps kind of Cressian language, right? There still is that notion in creative writing that, print is what validates your work. Online or on a computer is not what's going to validate your creative work. It's not going to have you be the artist that lives through the ages, all that kind of stuff. So trying to break down that bit of mythology too, because we are moving, in a very exciting and new direction with technology and how it can inform all the things that we do. And of course, again, how the instructor interacts with their students. Casey's part of this, which I worked with him on a little bit. Certainly was talking about how an instructor could work with their students in various contexts, right? And creative writing can take the lead there too as well and balance things off in terms of what it does with composition. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed it again, and it was really fun, and yeah, thank you very much.
I wish we could fly, hang our troubles out to die and get lost in a conversation. Everybody's down with the hand before, but not me. In a constellation, would you leave me at a time like